Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. Bit of a special video today, a very risky video for me to produce in all honesty, because today's video is a video from the past. Woo! The date, okay, is currently the 18th of February 2014. I have no idea when, if ever, I'm going to upload this video, but today we're going to do a tour of Lion's Arch. The idea here is that currently Lion's Arch is at risk of being destroyed and possibly never returning to the game. Like, it just could be completely gone. I am personally a big advocate of this. I believe that that's exactly what is going to happen. This does come at a time where a lot of people aren't convinced that's true. They think that there's just going to be an attack at Lion's Arch and then it will go away for a little while, but we shall see. I am confident enough that I believe it's gone for good, that I'm going to produce this video, and this is the last day of Lion's Arch. Literally, Tuesday the 18th, this is patch day. This is the day of the patch that took this place away from us, and I guess if it does return to the game, I simply won't upload this. So, I'm doing a time capsule. I'm gonna explore this place for us, and then some crazy time off in the future, you guys will finally get to see and be nostalgic about the way this town once was, and have a bit of an insight into what Guild Wars 2 once was. You know, this could be one of the greatest strengths of the living world that they're doing here, that new players could come in the game and they never see Lion's Arch. Well, through this video, hopefully you can. Anyway, so we're currently in Gendaran Fields. I'm going to begin my tour as smoothly as we can, just in the north. For most players playing the game at launch, this was their first ever view of Lion's Arch, unless they took a surrogate from one of their home cities to jump straight in there. For me, this was my first ever view of Lion's Arch, because before the game came out in convention demos, some players got to play during conventions on these fields here, and they would see a glimpse of this wonderful looking place here. So let's head on in. This isn't going to be too much like heavy lore stuff, I suppose. It's just going to be like, oh hey, I remember that, this place was cool. So we had this little bridge here. I did once glitch my way and do a video on top of that giant boat, which is pretty cool. Not going to do that here. And yeah, I'll try and keep the lore a little bit light, but for those who don't know, this was basically the capital of Crater for a very long time. In Guild Wars 1, it was one of the main places we hung out, and for most of Guild Wars 2 up until this point, it's where most players hang out also. Maybe I can splice in a bit of Guild Wars 1 footage if it's really warranted. But it seems like it's just going to be completely destroyed from now on. Currently in Guild Wars 2's timeline, it's not actually the capital of Crater anymore. It's become a free state, rebuilt by pirates after a tidal wave destroyed the old city, which I will show you guys at some point. Anyway, this is the entrance. Most of what everybody ever did in Lion's Arch was in this general area. There's the Mystic Forge, and I'll show you some of the other stuff in a second too. But I've actually got a map. I went through on Paint and asked a bunch of people for some locations where I've just marked a bunch of X's off for interesting things people might want to remember seeing. So, for example, crafting in the game. This was where I very first hit level 80 in all of Guild Wars 2. I was doing, like, jewel crafting as my crafting profession over here on my Elementalist, and I reached max level just like right around about here. Not so many players do it anymore, but yeah, the crafting stations, they were all in like this U-bend type area around here. We have like a channel of water obviously that was flowing under, and basically a huge perimeter around Lion's Arch. One little trick, actually, I guess that's not useful to people anymore since you can't do it, but a lot of people used to complain about Lion's Arch, how the trading post and bank were quite far away from one another, but someone actually pointed out to me very recently that you can just come to the crafting stations and use these as your banks, and it's actually much quicker to go from the trading post to the bank here at the weaponsmithing station rather than the real bank. But yeah, so that's something pretty cool, and that's where we used to craft at the game's launch. This, of course, here is the Mystic Forge. Aside from, like, in PvP or, you know, a couple of places out in World vs. World, really this was the main Mystic Forge for the game, and the most place you'd go to try and craft your precursor or throw a bunch of stuff in there. I have never, ever been one for gambling in the Mystic Forge, never bothered with it at all. But yeah, a lot of people would sink a lot of their money. People are saying, actually, before this patch comes out, they're like, oh, I hope that this place gets destroyed and Zomoros, who's the genie within, like, comes out and just throws all of the gold that he's absorbed from the community back out, throws it all around here for people to pick up. I'm curious what they'll do with the story of Zomoros and what's going to happen to the Mystic Forge if Lion's Arch is completely destroyed. But this is the original forge. You know, during festivals, it would change a little bit in appearance. Like, so for Halloween, it became a giant cauldron. For Winter's Day, I believe it became a snow globe. But this was its general look. You have Miani here. Miani is like the caretaker of the genie, I suppose. And she knows about Zomoros, and she'll give you information about how he's from Elona. She was the original NPC who would sell you all this stuff. I don't know whether she's going to move somewhere else, but this is where she is for now and always has been. And if you wanted any of these like legendary recipes, stuff like that, you'd get it all from Miani. Moving on, let's go to the bank, shall we? So this is where I spend most of my time in Lion's Arch. I feel like if you could get the statistics, this merchant here, Win, would be the most used merchant in all of Guild Wars 2, because so many people hang out at the bank here, and he's the closest merchant to the bank. I've used this guy a whole ton. This is the bank itself, kind of this submersible vehicle type thing. It always strikes me as one of the kind of thing that you would climb inside and it would go deep, deep down under the ocean. But yeah, this was the bank. There were a couple of other services in the area. This was where your guild bank was. Well, there was just another bank NPC there. Here's your guild bank. There's a guild armorer here and some other guild NPCs also. A lot of people remember there's two children that run around behind the bank or around the bank. Like one's a char and one's a child, and they're just talking about how they're weirded out that their races used to be at war with one another all the time. There's a lot of like big hallmark NPCs that I'm probably not going to be able to point out to every time, but maybe you guys will catch them as we go along. But yeah, so these were the guild armorers, the guild weaponsmith, and the commendation trader. One of the areas obviously you'd probably spend a lot of time at in Lion's Arch. The trading post, just of course over on this side round here. This is the headquarters of the trading post. This is where you can actually, I don't know where you'll be able to meet him in game after this patch, whether he dies maybe or something. That's a curious idea. But Evan Nashblade, you know, Evan Nashblade is a character in the story who was with the Legions and the Char, but he had a moment where he decided, no, this isn't for me, and he came and he formed the Black Lion Trading Company and has worked here in Lion's Arch among all the cutthroats evermore. He actually has NPC, I think he has dialogue talking about the incoming attack soon. He says, I tell you, things haven't been right since that mouse Keel lucked into that council seat. We could actually vote on him to become the councillor in Lion's Arch. And of course, he failed over Ellen Keel. That's curious to me as well after this patch. What's going to happen with Ellen Keel? Is she going to come back into the story? Because there is no more Lion's Arch Council, because they've all just been killed. Anyway, if he stops moving, we could talk to him better. But you can say, Nashblade, tough luck about the election if it matters. I voted for you. I did actually vote for him, I think. I abstained from most votes, but I at least voted for him for the achievement. Hey, I don't blame you. You're savvy. You know you voted for the right guy, but that Keel, she's going to get everyone in this town killed one day. Bold statement, how? Keel's playing in the mists while her leash holder Magnus has the best line guard out in Caledon Forest. We're undefended here. These are references to previous patches that have been going on. Caledon Forest, of course, was when they added the Twilight Arbor path. What's the danger? He says, once I'd say the Karka, but we've got bigger problems. Scarlet's out there somewhere. It's a matter of time before she punches Lion's Arch hard, and we know this is what the next patch is about. It's kind of important to point out as well that all of Season 1 of The Living World, I don't know how Season 2's been going on, but all of Season 1 sort of started with a Karka attack, and it's on Lion's Arch, and now it's going to end with an attack on Lion's Arch. We can say that Lion's Arch is a tough city. It's been hit before. It will still be standing. And he says that's not a winning business plan. A city can only take so much punishment before it falls. Magnus and his mouse Keel will be the cause of it. So we shall see. Of course, I think he's right, and this place is absolutely screwed. There is a hidden little thing here in Lion's Arch as well behind the trading post. Oh, by the way, this was the guild commendation merchant. This is the guy that you would go to for all your Black Lion stuff. Again, these NPCs or these services are going to have to move. Currently, love-struck items are the stuff in the on the list at the moment. But yeah, there is actually something pretty cool hidden around the back here. If you do the jumping correctly, yeah, I think I did it right there. If you manage to, I don't know on a warrior how I could really do it. Maybe if I equip sword main hand, I can savage leap over there. Ah, I missed it. There's actually a hidden... Oh, no, did I miss it? I think it's down here, actually. Yeah, there's a hidden golden coin in the corner of this area there. Excuse my camera, it's really hard to see. But it's just in the corner. I'll probably pause the footage so you guys can see it better. These coins were added by one of the developers to lots of areas in Lion's Arch. I think there's at least 5 of them. That's one of the most notorious ones. Most people know about that one from the bank. And yeah, they were sort of placed around Lion's Arch as a nod from the devs to say, hey, yeah, we know you got to these weird little areas. There's always been a lot of talk about them. And I thought, hey, we should at least show one of those off in this tour before everything goes kaput. So, another cool area that's always been quite significant, in my mind at least, is the upper walkways currently above us. Lion's Arch is mostly quite a flat city, especially if you compare it to the Grove or even Ratasum. But it does have a little bit of verticality to it in the centre, and that comes from this gangway by walking up here. And this allows you to get to some cool little areas, including one of the 3 jumping puzzles in Lion's Arch. Not sure how they'll continue to exist, but hey. There's also something cool around this side here as well, just before I show you that. Lion's Arch is full of NPCs and weird things that seem to have been hinting at changes to come in the future, and then they seem to have never amounted to anything, especially if everything gets destroyed. We've got these hidden pirates just in this little cove here, but there is an NPC building a shop or a house just around on this corner. You know, we're quite out of the way here. We're near the entrance to Lion's Arch, which is just down below us, but there is a guy working on a building, or he was at least at one point during the game's development. Yeah, it's just, I'm going to have to cut that there because I fell down. I believe it's this engineer here, though. He's talking about how they're building some stuff. At the rate they're working, the land should be cleared and I should be open for business before you know it. So if you're in the market, look us up. She's probably going to have to find some other place to open up her business. I've always found that place kind of interesting. I always thought, hey, eventually Living World would turn that into something that would become a part of the plot. And yet, perhaps not. Perhaps these characters will just die in the attack, or maybe some of them will be taken through to future things and they'll have to set up shop in other towns. Again, before we go across the gangway to the start of the jumping puzzle area, I do want to point out this area up here as well. Lion's Arch is a town that was governed by a council, and you can see these guys up in this nice boat up here. So Captain Bonnie Ann Reid will speak to you and says that the Captain's Council is not in session, but we can submit our concerns and we'll look into them, blah, blah, blah. And up here you can find Captain Ellen Keel on Lion's Arch last day. She is here. She does have a Living World icon above her head, and you can ask her to prepare the defenses of the city, but this is what she responds with. She says, you and Marjorie make a convincing case for Lion's Arch being Scarlet's next big target. Sadly, the rest of the Captain's Council don't see it that way. I've tried my best, but they won't budge. So they aren't doing anything to prepare for the attack. They aren't, but I am. I'll make sure the city isn't totally unprepared. I could do it with more full council backing, but thanks to your warning, it will save lives when Scarlet comes calling. And we'll see what happens later on today, whether Ellen Keel can actually muster some decent defenses. But yeah, you can always speak to the members of the Captain Council. This place is actually quite significant if you've read the third novel. There's a lot about Lion's Arch in there. I won't go into too much details. There is also, however, this little cabinet here, and behind the cabinet is a secret door. It used to be guarded by a golem, I believe. Also, there's actually a secret door to an Order of Whispers base down there. Oh yeah, here we go. This is the golem that was protecting it, and I'll show you guys that secret base from the other side soon enough. Up there's some other characters you can speak to, but this was the Captain's Council ship. Be interesting to see if we get like a cinematic and that just gets like blown up and falls off the wall or something, just to signify the absolute destruction of, you know, the leaders of the place and everything. But, so yeah, we could explore over across that bridge, but we'll do that soon enough. I want to walk across this gangplank now and show you guys some of the other cool stuff just above Lion's Arch. You got these cool, like, tapestry, these blue tapestries here. In early trailers for the game, you could see these were used all over the place in Lion's Arch, but it seems like they're not really used that much in the actual final release. We've got a couple of citizens here. So as you come up, you can see this rock here that you can jump across to. And yes, it looks very unnatural and weird, but this is actually where, if you don't know what this is, we're walking on a sculpture of a giant, like, mer lion. This is Lion's Arch, and there's loads of statues of lions all over the place. This is one of them, except he's not a real lion. It's like a mer lion, and you can see up there. I'll show you in a second. But you can walk along this and use it to reach this rocky plateau up here. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of players will have had a moment where they managed to cut up here. And there's actually a small child over here called Ran, who's been hiding and crying or something up here. He says, what are you doing up here? It's my spot. Go find your own place to play. I always like this area. I found this place before I found a lot of other things in Lion's Arch, and I actually believe another one of the gold coins is somewhere around here, but I'm not entirely sure. There's something on the ground there as well. That's kind of weird. But yeah, so this was one of the cool little places. Anyway, we can continue our way up here. You find one of the vistas for the area, and this is actually the entrance to one of the jumping puzzles. In the tour, I'm not going to do all of the jumping puzzles, otherwise it would just be a ridiculously long video, and you can find all of those tours elsewhere on YouTube. I've actually got some videos myself of them, but basically, one of the entrances to the jumping puzzle, there's a pipe there that you can only access by dropping down in this one tiny specific area through those plants, and you land in the bottom of that well. Really, really cool little area. I've always called this the Super Mario jumping puzzle, just because you're going down a pipe like that. But yeah, we have a little vista here as well that shows you the central area. I may as well ping this so that you guys can see. Get some actual scenic views without my crazy camera going all over the place. So there you can see. And what most of that vista actually centers on you can still climb up to. I've always enjoyed this. They added Belcher's Bluff to the game, and when Belcher's Bluff came out, this was like my favourite place to come and drink with Belcher's Bluff. So you could come over to this merchant over here and say, hey, I want to buy a Belcher's Bluff kit, as you can see here. I still kind of want to buy a bottomless one, but I'm not sure whether I have the balls to do that just yet. But yeah, this is such a cool place, like so high up, and we're like essentially really, really close to where all the other players are, but they don't really know it, or they don't get to see us. We're just sort of hanging out up here by these bar stores. I really enjoyed this place. So anyway, there you go. That's most of the central locations in Lion's Arch. Let's have a look at some of the ones that are a little bit further out of the way, shall we? Like, for example, up that ramp and the lion statue. I'm going to try and land on the Mystic Forge. I will probably die. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, we'll waypoint. Of course, it's free. I didn't need to try and fall at all. But yeah, this was the central area. Kiss it goodbye. I always do like this place. You obviously got retrators here in quite a nice position. So let's head on around over here. Repair guy over there. Used many times, of course. There's a bunch of like small NPCs and minor interactions going on down there. There's also an entrance to the sewers, which I'll show you guys in just one moment. But here's the lion statue. This, I believe it says something down here in New Crichton that I've now forgotten. I think it says like, interior we trust, or together we made this, or something. I know that word there is we anyway. But yeah, the idea behind this statue was it was like built by all of the races, you know, like it's got Silvari architecture in there, it's got Asuran mechanisms, it's got like the Norn friggin' giant lion dude up there. It's kind of like a symbol of what all of the races could do. And there's a bit of history with it as well, because as Living Story stuff started to come out, like this was destroyed with the first Halloween event, and then it was slowly being rebuilt. It's a pretty cool little place, and maybe it will get destroyed completely again, who knows. There's an Asura Gate hub area here. This is where all of the Asura Gates would take you to. This as well is like quite a striking thing to see. I'll show you guys a view of it as well a little bit later on in the video. But this is where, say, if you just started the game and you wanted to say to your Norn friend, hey, I'm Adol Silvari, but let's play together, you would come through these gate hubs from the other major cities. A cool little fact about the Asura Gates that a lot of people don't know is Arenanet usually try to orient where like they're facing physically to where their exit portal would be out interior. So for example, we've got the 5 gates here, but you can find that their backs usually aim somewhere about where the location is. So for example, like with this Holbrack one, Holbrack over here, these are the Wolfborn, it's aiming around in this direction, in sort of a northeasterly direction. And if we press M and follow the line along, it should take you directly to Holbrack, as you can see. It doesn't always line up. The Char one, for example, doesn't line up very well. But like the Asura one and the Silvaria one, they're both over here. The Divinity's Reach one, as you can see here, is off on the northwest. And what do you know? If you follow the line, it goes directly to northwest. Cool little area, and I guess probably quite significant to a lot of people. Who knows what will happen to it. So yeah, let's head up to the sewers. This is one of the cool areas. Obviously, there's the idea of map completion. Like, one kind of lazy tour that I could do would be like, oh, hey, yeah, let's just do map completion, shall we? Let's just map complete the whole way through the game. My character was moving really slowly there. That was really weird. Wow, okay. But we're not going to do map completion. I think that there's actually a lot more to see in Lion's Arch that exists outside of map completion, so it wouldn't really be an amazing tour. But yeah, we got these little houses and things here out in the canalway. And you got the sewers. There's lots of sewer grates like this. This one's probably the best because it takes you to 2 different significant areas. Should you go left once you're down here, so you get the little Hylek here, I think these are a nice touch. But should you go left, you can actually find your way to a really deep pit. And if you swim down said pit, it should be here. Yep. If you swim down here, you can get to like a huge basin deep beneath Lion's Arch. There we go. I thought honestly that my Norn was too big to get there for a second. And this place, like, no one really comes to that much. Like, it's not even necessary for world completion to come down here. But it is a cool area, and we were encouraged to come here for one of the Halloween updates. But otherwise, very little reason to come down, even though it's like such a significant area. I believe there's a whale down here as well, right? Like, they spawn a whale in this huge room. But yeah, kind of scary stuff, very ominous actually. And there was something to do with a ghost with one of the updates to do things here. But a real ship graveyard, and just sort of goes to show that Lion's Arch is built on this mass of wreckages and wood all over the place. However, if instead of going left, you go to the right, you will find yourself in an Order of Whispers secret base, and that is on the other side of the doorway I showed you in the Captain's Council. So the idea here is the Order of Whispers, sneaky as they are, have got their fingers in all pies kind of thing, and they're right there, they're right near the Captain's Council. Whether perhaps the people on the council are about to be attacked and the Order of Whispers can move in very quickly, or whether they are simply just spying, who knows. But again, I'm curious, like, if this event... It's so stupid because there's so much speculation coming from me that you guys know the answer to. But I'm wondering if in the event when Lion's Arch falls, there is going to be an actual attack on the Captain's Council, and these guys in this cave here are actually going to step up. So here you go, you can see Whispers Agent. The character I'm playing currently is not a member of the Order of Whispers, so probably can't say too much to them. But you can head right on up. Oh, there's another player in here, that's always cool to see. You can head right up and have a couple of conversations with what the different members of the Order of Whispers have to say.
Let's start with things that are interesting to me.
So you can see you've got Keeper Older and a stairway up here that leads to a blocked off doorway, just like this. And you can never, like, walk through the doorway. That's something I've always thought was weird as well. Maybe there's a personal story thing that talks about this. But yeah, so that's part of the sewer. There is a lot more sewer systems, like there's one that goes through down here. But largely we don't really need to see that. Let's go back to the Asuragate hub, and we'll have a look at the secondary Asuragate hub. Do you guys remember how I told you that there was a lot of stuff in Lion's Arch that seemed to be hinting at things to come and would eventually have updates, like that woman that was building the house? Well, this is probably the biggest one. I remember finding this in betas and freaking out with excitement. It was like, wow, the main game isn't even out yet, but I'm so excited about an expansion and what Arenanet could do. And this seemed like one of those areas they were so heavily hinting at that this was going to have something to do with an expansion, and didn't really turn out to be much. But it's a secondary Asuragate hub.
A mere miscalculation. If I had carried the 3, no one would have died.
And it is filled with Asura who are working on Asuragates that they say will be working soon. For example, this crew leader here. You are no doubt concerned with queries about this project, but I can't divulge anything. I've signed forms and paperwork promising not to discuss this project until it's completed. I was curious, but since you've signed a non-disclosure agreement... Okay, I'll tell you, she says. I've been dying to tell someone. These new Asuragates are financed by Ratassoon, but I can't tell you where they lead. I understand you've signed contracts promising to keep it a secret. No, if I knew where they led, I'd tell you. They haven't even decided where they'll exist yet, but the Crichton Queen and the Commodore think it's a good idea, so I build the gates and cash the checks. We say, well, I appreciate the privileged information. You can't breathe a word of what I've just told you, she said. They made me sign papers and documents swearing I wouldn't reveal a thing. I feel like this is sort of a tongue-in-cheek thing about the devs were maybe writing about, you know, their own beta testers and people who have to sign their own NDAs, and everybody just wants to spill all the secrets all the time. But yeah, you've got all these Asuragates. Interesting little bug that sometimes happens with this is you'll walk over and they'll actually have, like, the animation on them to suggest they're active, but it'll also have one of those big, like, red X's over it saying no entry that we used to see all the time in betas, but now you only ever see on these gates when that bug happens. And yeah, it seemed very promising idea, right? Like, you've got Lion's Arch, it remains the hub city, you've got like a regular hub over here, and then a second hub for new areas that they added into the game, and then this would become another area that lots of players hang out. There's an Asuragate in Brisbane Wildlands right now that maybe eventually would have linked to Lion's Arch, and perhaps never will now. Very cool area, and one that excited me an awful lot when I first saw it. So let's go across one of the cool little Lion's Arch bridges, since I suppose we should do at least one during the tour. I actually thought I'd be going counterclockwise in this tour, but I seem to have just been going clockwise instead. So there's a big little mansion here that we used to be able to go into. Very cool place. There's not too much in there really. I mean, there's many floors, but I don't remember anything super significant. However, behind it there is one of these really fancy looking bridges. These were really early concepts for Lion's Arch. You could see them in some of the earliest trailers. And again, I really like the clustered atmosphere. I mean, I'm doing this on a giant gnaw on this little tour for you guys. But especially when I'm on my Asura, I always enjoyed these small clustered little passageways that you could walk around in. And yeah, these are bridges for Lion's Arch. They're really cool little places. There's a vista up above this one that we're currently on. And there's a fair few of them. I'll just take us through this one and then we'll use waypoints for the other ones. But on the other side, we will come to one of the cooler vistas that I at least want to point out. Yeah, I'm not doing world completion for this tour, but I do want to point out this vista. We got a little seaside bar here.
Do they sell spring water there?
We'll stop off at a spring, and then we're gonna surprise a farmer.
Yes, that definitely qualifies as something new. I'm in.
Okay, awesome. But yeah, there was a vista on this just random rock out in the middle of nowhere. The way you get to it is by speaking to this Asura called Clag, who gives you an environmental weapon that does time out rather quickly, but called Jump Shot, that allows you to jump wherever you like. The funny thing with Jump Shot is that it has a range of 500,000. I believe it is, and maybe it's no longer in the game, but currently it is the longest range ability in Guild Wars 2, including like Siege and stuff. 500,000 range. You can see that, like, I can aim all the way over there and my reticle is still green. I can aim all the way over there. I can aim on that bridge. I guess that's so far that the game can't even detect it. But in theory, this is still an ability that's in range. Imagine if this was something like Lightning Flash or something. And in theory, you could just click it. Now, the jump itself has a range, sadly, but the skill itself will cast even that far away. Really cool skill. In betas, I used it to bug out of various areas. You could pick up this ability and then waypoint anywhere in the entire game world and have like this immense jump shot you could use. Cool stuff. One of the more fun vistas that they put in the game. So yeah, we'll walk along with this little tour over here. We're coming up to a house now as well. For people who have been watching my channel a long time, just before I released this video, I actually released a video talking about shadow steps and how to break out of maps. This was one of the houses I featured on that video. For guys that don't know, during the personal story, you do actually get to go inside this building, but usually in regular Lion's Arch, it's actually locked out. And I demonstrated a way that players could break their way in by standing on this hay bale and using a ground target ability around about there, and then they would be able to blink in. So yeah, that's a cool little place, and I've had some fun breaking out of maps and doing things there. This is another portal, I believe, just to Gendaron is another area. I don't think it takes you straight into Lorna's. Yeah, it just puts you into Gendaron. It's a weird little walkway. I've never actually used this, I don't think. Maybe once or twice. But it's a weird one. It's not a conventional way to actually get into Lion's Arch. You usually just think about the northern entrance or the southern entrance, and that's about it. However, over in this corner of the map, we do come to a cave. I believe this is called Ermorg Secrets or something. This is the location of the second of 3 jumping puzzles in Lion's Arch. This one in particular has you just climb up the back of the cave. It's a pretty cool little one because it's very innocuous. I like this jumping puzzle because a lot of the time when you see a jumping puzzle, you just see it as, oh yeah, there's all this clear stuff that you need to just climb up. You know, really conveniently placed blocks or pieces of coral out in ore and so forth. But this is literally, it just looks like a cave, you know. It really does just look like a cave. But if you stop to inspect it just for a little while, you'll realize you can climb up the sides. I really shouldn't be doing jumping puzzles on a max size Norn on a video, but hey, this is the jumping puzzle, and eventually you can actually manage to climb your way up. Obviously, it's starting to look a lot more like a jumping puzzle now that I'm here, but from the ground floor, you know, especially if you're not looking for it, you can easily just skip over and think it's just a cool little cave with some NPCs in there. And yeah, so there's some ogres here, friendly ogres that live in Lion's Arch, won't attack you. Obviously, it is a city, so nothing ever used to attack you in this place. I don't know what the state of it is in the world right now, but I would assume that if you can still come back here, there's probably loads of enemies willing to tear your face off. I wonder if they'll make it like a level 80 zone or a low-level zone. So much to think about. And you guys can just all sit there smugly knowing. So there you go, I've got Puzzle Jumper. It'd be very interesting if this still exists, and that was just useless me showing you guys. But yeah, and then you can come out of this this cave mouth here and see wonderful little Lion's Arch. And there you go. So we'll continue around the side. We're coming up to some other little cool things here. Mainly the mower racing. There's another way as well to break out of Lion's Arch just here. You can like use an experimental rifle gun on this rock wall. Not the one exactly to my left, but sort of nearby. Mower racing was added to Lion's Arch quite a while after launch, but this weird ramp thing was always there ever since the start of the game. So I think they always had it concepted out. They just didn't eventually add the activity for quite a while. But yeah, this is the mower racing race course. They all jump up here and then they run along and then they go back down the way they came. There is this vista on these rocks. That's actually not too interesting. But there is a bridge going onto an island with a farmhouse over there. That place is kind of cool, and so are the caves underneath with all the crabs. But even if Lion's Arch gets attacked, I would expect all this stuff to still be here, maybe? If all this stuff gets destroyed, then it's like, Jesus, what does Scarlet really do to this place? But yeah, there's like a little crab cave there. Small little house, you can speak to some NPCs inside. Mostly this is sort of the more rural areas, more farmlandy type things, but players were eventually encouraged to come here with the mower racing. It's an interesting one if mower racing gets removed after the patch, because right now you can participate in it whenever you like, and for about 30 to 60 golds worth of gambling, you can get a cool mini pet. However, when this gets removed, that mini pet is therefore going to become very, very expensive. So here, look, we can place a bet. Let's place 50 silver on Meep, shall we? And then in 50 seconds, they're just going to go off. This is like a really unique dynamic event, because it's an activity dynamic event with like a specific little icon there. You rarely ever see that. But yeah, it's out in the open world. And I sort of wish I spent more time here, to be honest. But hey, I never did that much. Anyway, they'll go and race, and I guess I'll just get a random reward. I can't really even remember how that works anymore. We'll get a random reward anyway, and we'll see how it goes. And as I say, more farmland stuff. This is very similar to what you see in Queensdale, really, these sprinkler machines. Just a bunch of roosters and chickens and all kinds of stuff around here. That's fine. Here's a windmill, and this windmill is the third and final jumping puzzle in Lion's Arch. This was the original, like, crazy jumping puzzle. This was like the insane, elaborate, amazing jumping puzzle that you wouldn't believe really ever existed. And the way you get to it is by jumping on these hay bales, sneaking behind this building, like into the backyard of this building, and then you can come through this bush into this hidden area. But I think this was all just so well designed. I really enjoyed this jumping puzzle. And then you can come up here through these bushes, and even this I still get stuck on every now and then. There we go. Into even this area, which is even more well hidden. You can climb these rocks and find your way into Sharkmore's Caverns. Sharkmore's Caverns is such a cool jumping puzzle. As I say, I've already got a video of it, so I'm not going to do one. I will show you the vista though, however. And yeah, you're going to get taunted by that ghostly pirate the whole way through the puzzle. Really, really cool area. I remember in betas, Arenanet had it blocked off, but people were like trying to bug their way in, and I like used the jump gun to be able to bug my way in, and it was sort of like this mad rush to show everyone how cool they could do jumping puzzles. And as of right now, they only did one update where they added more, sadly, and that's been our lot. But yeah, really, really cool jumping puzzle in there. Actually comes at the end with an NPC as well, who will sell you a bunch of unique weapon skins for karma. And literally, like, they are really unique, and if Lion's Arch gets destroyed, then you can never get these again, so this would be like your last chance to buy them, in theory, since today is the last day of Lion's Arch. Let's go to the Bloodtide Coast waypoint. So, to the south of Lion's Arch was always the entrance to Bloodtide Coast. It's just down there, which I'm sure will be intact to some degree, at least. Down on the beach as well, this area is the, like, what is presumed to have been the mini-pet battles. Do you guys know how I mentioned that the mower racing always had that weird ramp thing there? Well, this was always here as well, but they never actually added the mini-pet battles. So, who knows whether they ever will. You can still see a couple of minis in the middle there. It would be a nice feature, but this sort of Arenanet logo style arena maybe will never mean anything. Down on that beachhead over there also was where a bunch of characters in the Living Story got stuck after they lost their homes during the Flame and Frost stuff, and there were some quests and things to do around here to help them find a new home before they all ended up going to South Sun. And these Grawl here, who have always been refugees in this area, were very annoyed while many other characters are around here, because they were saying, we were here first, and the other characters just came and took their space. But it's pretty cool. He says, what do you want? Dredge come with guns, machines, and ugly faces. They took our land, so we came here. I'm the chief of my tribe. I decide Lion's Arch is best. And maybe the Grawl was smart for a long time to stay here, unlike the others. But I don't know. If this place is about to get attacked, we'll see how they do surviving. I mean, yeah, just a very pretty little waterfall, of course. That's the end of the jumping puzzle over there. I believe you can still bug your way up to the top of that. It's not really that hard. But yeah, so this is this area. Also, during the South Sun events, there were a bunch of like whales that washed up on the beach that got a lot of people talking. There were also advertisements for South Sun Cove popping up before the release came out. And I remembered sitting about with my guild in those early days, and we were translating the new crate and reading it in signposts around here. That was always a bit of a fond moment. And yeah, so obviously that stuff's all been removed. Let's go up to Fort Mariner. That's what this place over here is. I'm sure if they're going to destroy Lion's Arch, they'll destroy Fort Mariner. This originally was just the place that you would go to. So this is like the third portal hub, okay? We've got the regular one. We've got like the second one for areas that never got added to the game. And this is the last one. This is the PvP portal hub. So you've got a gate that takes you to the Heart of the Mist, which is competitive PvP. You've got a gate for each of the individual Borderlands. You've got a gate for the Eternal Battlegrounds. And you've got a new portal that just arrived for the Edge of the Mist, which is really temporary and weird, but yes, it's been added there. And there are all characters in the area saying, oh, join the Mist War, blah, 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 blah. The other significant thing about this area, though, was this is where they put dungeon armors. I've always questioned their decision to do this. Why didn't they just have you buy the dungeon armors from the NPC outside the dungeon? It seems really weird that they just moved them all to Lion's Arch. But here there are 8 characters all stood in a row that will all take dungeon tokens from you in exchange for dungeon weapons, armors, runes, stuff like that. No idea where these guys are going to get moved to in the long term. I guess Vigil Keep is where most going. Here is Dougal Keen as well. This is actually the main character of the first Guild Wars novel. It's really weird to see him in game. A lot of the characters from the novels are standing about. He's like a really specific big one. I remember when the very first preview of the very first book came out on Guild Wars 2 Guru, we talked about it in a forum thread, and I put forward the idea that you could reserve the character names in Guild Wars 1 to then have in Guild Wars 2, and someone stole Dougal Keen from me. And I'm still upset about that, but somebody got Dougal Keen from way back then. And here he is in game. I got the name of one of the Norn, I think Gideon or Sotidir or something was the one I got. But yeah, so you can speak to Dougal. He says, I recognise you, Natalie, right? My name's Dougal. I've been wondering if I'd see you come through here at some point. You can have a little bit of a chat with him about what's going on and how his life has just become nothing and boring and mundane since the novel. Like, if they want living world characters, why don't they pick some of the novel characters? Anyway, yeah, so he's here. These are the dungeon armors. There's another interesting NPC as well. This guy here, Sonder the Seller. This dude was added later as a way of exchanging, like, old currencies from old festivals and things, like Zytaffy and, well, I guess that's still Zytaffy over there. But candy corn, things like this, and you can actually trade it for really nice rewards. And I guess this guy will be moving after a while, but you can get all these things here, as you can see, which is pretty nice. We'll head on up as well. So this is also the location of the Lion's Arch prison, which you can find just here. This has been significant in Living World. In fact, the most recent Living World patch, you've been able to come in here and talk to Kanak and the guard and how Mytrin was broken free from the jail. Kanak is now here. I'm sure when the attack begins, he's going to get released by the catastrophe and he'll make a decision whether he's going to be a good guy or a bad guy or run away. I want him to be a bad guy and just run off in some way, and then, like, I don't know, his story becomes something more than just, oh, I'll save everybody, and then he becomes a good dude. Like, I don't want to see that. I want to see him stay an interesting character. But definitely when the attack comes, he's going to get released, and we'll see what happens from there. Currently, he is just in jail, however. And the other thing that's over here at Fort Mariner is this weird little gangway. They added this, I believe, with Dragon Bash, just really randomly. They just added this gangplank here, as if it was going to be used for something. Maybe it was meant to be used to see the giant firework version of the dragon in the sky. But all in all, really, it's never been used for anything, except now you can just see it as a nice view of the surrogates, which I mentioned we were eventually going to see in the video. So there it is. I do keep to my promises. And that was a cool little view, I guess, of what was going on. Down below us are where the Consortium are, and that's where I'll take us next. However, there is something other small that's interesting. This guy here as well, this cultural weaponsmith, these are Lion Guard weapons. Just how there are unique pirate weapons at the end of Waydance Revenge, these are also unique weapons bought for Karma that could, again, potentially be completely removed. Depends what happens to the Lion Guard after this patch. But yeah, you can currently get this cultural armor. Anyone who bought it around about now might be looking pretty cool later on if it becomes like a skin you can never get again. Especially considering because these are bought with Karma, that makes them soulbound instantly. But yeah, I was talking about things that looked like they were eventually going to blossom into something and never did. Don't forget, this is sort of the PvP-ish area we're at right now. Well, over here is this sort of a weird open plan section that it looks like a bunch of characters are trying to build stuff. And these are the Zaishan. These were characters from Guild Wars 1 who used to be the guys that maintained all of the PvP stuff. And they lived on a place called the Battle Isles. And there's always been, oddly, a bunch of Zaishan here in Lion's Arch. And I always thought maybe with some update they'd eventually do something. Well, who knows what's going to happen to them now, whether there's going to be any Zaishan in Guild Wars 2 after this patch. But yeah, here they are hanging out. And so yeah, let's have a look at the Consortium. The Consortium were a company that were introduced to the game during the Living World as sort of cutthroat merchants that were competitors to the guys at the Black Lion Company. That was pretty ridiculous. When we first met them, they introduced us to this holiday resort known as South Sun Cove, and a lot of stuff went wrong there. But you can still go to South Sun from the Asura gate that they originally set up, which is just here. And the representatives are all stood about, so there's an instant access gate to South Sun, which is pretty cool. You can speak to them in their own little room over here as well. I wonder what the Consortium will do when Lion's Arch gets attacked, whether they're going to, you know, make a stand, maybe move to have a base of operations elsewhere. Like, there's so many factions and characters that are all centered around Lion's Arch. Like, you can really see how after this is going to swing Season 2 into potentially loads of different directions. And maybe you guys can just guffaw about how none of this stuff ever followed through, but we'll see. So here you go. You can speak to the Consortium. They're still very shady. I don't know. They don't necessarily do stuff against the law, but people don't like them at all. And this is their little room. This is the entrance also to Fractals of the Mist, which was opened by the Consortium, but they didn't want to. In there is Detha and everything that's going on with her, but that's not really Lion's Arch, and I'm sure that will still exist. Here's one of the adverts, by the way, for South Sun Cove I was talking about. That is all translatable. I don't remember it anymore, and I can't read New Crying anymore, but yes, it is all translatable. They also did another update where they added like a Cobia Mariner plaque under one of these docks, I believe, which was pretty cool to see. I believe it's just down here. It's like really well hidden. Yeah, it's under here. You see, they built the idea is like the people of Lion's Arch built the dock over one of these old stands here, without people, you know, never really respecting the old areas. Speaking of old areas, I'm on fire with the segues right now. In the water, in the bay of Lion's Arch, here you can see this is old Lion's Arch. This is the Guild Wars 1 Lion's Arch that we all knew and love and got completely destroyed by the tidal wave, and the water levels never receded to a point that it became above surface again. But this here, so you guys know like the lion statue in Guild Wars 2 that I showed you earlier, this was sort of the equivalent of that to me in the first game, and it's still here in its ruined form. Most significant is this is Scarlet Briar's Thumper turret that changed, a Thumper turret, or just I guess Thumper, that changed colour during the final Living Story release. And this is basically telling her, hey, this is the area that she wants to attack, and that this is what she was looking for in the ley lines. So if any atrocity is going to come down in Lion's Arch, I would expect it to slam down directly on top of this Thumper, which would just devastate all of this stuff at the very least, but we'll see. So yeah, and there was like a vista down in the water there too. One final little thing near the Consortium area, I guess it would be quickest to waypoint, is the idea of the Lion's Arch Lighthouse. In the first game, Lion's Arch was a rather big town, not as big as you can see it in Guild Wars 2. It was a rather big town, and it had, in particular, a really long walkway path far off the beaten track that you could follow and stay within Lion's Arch, but it would take you to like a really cinematic, quiet, scenic area of the map where there was a lighthouse, and there was nothing to do with the lighthouse. There was never any quest. It was just a cool little place you could go to and see, as much of Guild Wars 1 was, you know, it was big open areas. That is now the lighthouse I'm talking about. The terrain's changed an awful lot in the 250 years. At launch of the game, this lighthouse was there. It was completely fine and functioning fine, and in the initial attack on Lion's Arch with the Karka destroyed it. I distinctly remember standing here trying to fight Karka through ridiculous amounts of lag, and it never worked out. But this is the original Lion's Arch lighthouse, and they began to rebuild a new lighthouse, which you can see over here now. And I guess construction of that new lighthouse is finished. Well, it never really meant anything for the story, though, and I'll be very curious to see if this one, again, gets destroyed, too. Like, it all started with the lighthouse getting destroyed, they rebuild it, and then it gets destroyed again. I'm sure some people would be unhappy with that, but I'd quite like it. I think that would be pretty cool, and, you know, just a massive middle finger to all the efforts we've made this year in trying to stop Scarlet. There's some targets on giant rocks here as well. It seems like another kind of MOA racing, mini-pet battle style thing that never ended up in the game. There used to be, yeah, there's at least 3 of them, as you can see here. I'm guessing it was going to be some kind of canon minigame, maybe, but it was never eventually developed fully by the devs. You can go and jump around on the lighthouse as well, but there's little reason to. So that's that. There were a couple of boats in the bay for a little while during the game. They're not here anymore, I suppose. I remember because the Elementalists used to have a method of blinking out of the water so that they could get onto stuff like boats out in the water. And it got nerfed, and then they added some boats here. That was around the South Sun stuff. That was a real shame to see. Okay, so let's swim on over to this area here. This is sort of near the central stuff that I was showing you guys in Lion's Arch before, but not quite. This dock, with this boat in particular here, they did a couple of releases. One of them was to South Sun Cove, and one of them was to the Bazaar of the Four Winds, the Zephyrite Sanctum, that actually allowed players to come onto this dock, speak to the guy who owns the ship, and then they would be transported over to that new area of the world. And you can't do that anymore because the releases aren't live. But yeah, so the Sanctum Sprint guy is still here. And on the correct day, you can actually go into Sanctum Sprint and play that minigame if you like. There's another NPC actually near the lion statue that does the exact same thing. But this is why most players came to this dock. There wasn't much reason to otherwise. There is like a weird little room here as well. There's another Mariner's plaque here. For those who don't know, there's an achievement here where you can speak to all of these Mariner plaques, and you find them all, you get an achievement, which is worth like 2 points, and then you can get like 5 skill points as well. But yeah, there's this cool area that I always used to hang out in, just walk along all the way down there, and just sit there and hide, but there's no practical use for it. And there's some a Dermond Priory dig site just over here in the background too. I will point this out. In the first game, overlooking Lion's Arch, so think about where old Lion's Arch is, way off over in that direction. Overlooking it was a huge keep up on a cliff. Well, now if you think about it with the water level and so forth, we're now on top of that cliff. And you can find the ruins of the keep. This is the ruins of the keep. You can actually see it up on some of these ledges as well. You can see some of that really old Crichton architecture. There you go, all the way up there, as you can see. And the Dermond Priory actually were doing an excavation on this area, looking for relics, things like that. And apparently they didn't find anything. Queen Jenna was interested, but all they have found is bits and pieces about the keep, like its relationship to the Lion Guard and how Dermond himself was viewed by the monarchy. So no massive lore bombs here, but it was a cool area, and I was very happy to see that the location of the keep was still consistent, even though the rest of Guild Wars 2's Lion's Arch is so different. Over here, you've got a big memorial to the fights and a lot of the events that were going on in the third novel. Again, this is all translatable New Crichton. It just talks about different characters and Cobia and, you know, standing for Lion's Arch and so forth. Cool little area. I've always liked this, especially with the gold text. This will be a shame to lose, definitely. I think people have translated it online, though, so that's fine. This is also the site of one of the last Living World instances where there was a lot of story. Like, this is where Marjorie Delacroix and Lady Casimir were sat, looking out at the water, sort of having a bit of a romantic evening. There were a couple of quag in here. This is where we first met Timey and Bram, and, well, I guess except for the Arenanet event. This is where a lot of story stuff happened, exactly on this beach. And I guess this will be the kind of thing a lot of NPCs sort of fondly reminisce about later on. Just my guess. There's another beachside bar up there where all those NPCs are. On the South Sun release, we hung out here as well, and we did a bunch of stuff like looting crates and trying to find out exactly what was going on. This mansion here is a part of a personal story mission, and that same video I was talking about earlier, I showed people how to blink inside, and it's got like an insane amount of detail in there, which is really cool. And up here is a statue of Cobia himself, which is very nice, and you can interact with it. This actually counts as one of the plaques. We make it a free port, not beholden to any nation. The port would be open to any and all, so long as they fight against Or and help to keep our waters clear. Welcome. Cobia Mariner, founder of Lion's Arch in 1231 after the Exodus. Pretty cool. And here is... I've always really liked this. Maybe people don't care so much. So all over the game there are diving goggles, right? That you can put on and then you'll jump in the water. This was the very first diving goggle location Arenanet ever did. Like, they basically just created this whole thing, the guy that designed the map or whatever, and then they just added diving goggles. Before there was ever an idea of an achievement for it or anything like this, this was the first one, and then slowly more diving goggles got added to the rest of the game. And you can really tell why. Like, it's so significant, climbing all the way up here. Keep on going. There's a vista to encourage people to get there, obviously. You keep going, keep going, keep going. And then at the very top, you can put on your diving goggles. I guess I have to do this now because I've climbed all the way up. And you could drop your way down. And yeah, this is sort of like the first instance of it. Later on as well in the story, I'll show you once I waypoint. Actually, I don't need to waypoint. It's not so bad. Wow, I almost hit the rock. That's fine. No worries there, no worries. We're perfectly safe. Do I need to waypoint? No, I can walk up here. Also, with another release, they added the Aether Blade hideout, and it is still here, believe it or not. Yeah, the fake wall, it's not there, is it? It's somewhere near here. I think it's around this corner. And this is where the Aether Blade were hiding under the Lion's Guard's nose. This is it, I think. You can walk through the wall. Should be able to, behind the waterfall. There we go. So this is just a hologram, as you can see, projected. And for a little while, this was the entrance to an instance, actually one of the better dungeons, in my opinion, that I added to the game, that you now play in Fractals of the Mists. It was right there, hidden behind that waterfall. Very cool. All right. Let's talk about the Tengu, shall we? Let's go up to this waypoint, the Western Ward. Very close to the beach we were on, where I was talking about the South Sun stuff and the statue. Just so that people don't lose their orientation. Let's turn off my UI as well for a bit. So over here, you know how I talked about how there's a lighthouse in Guild Wars 1 that was like really far away and like quite quiet? This is sort of the equivalent area in my mind. There's like a caravan, I guess, of people who were just stopping off here, Ash Legion soldiers and so forth. But right around this corner, you can find the entrance to the Dominion of Winds. One of the biggest bits of speculation, I don't actually believe it, honestly, but one of the biggest bits of speculation people have right now is once Scarlet attacks Lion's Arch, because the Tengu are right here on its doorstep, they'll like open their gates and allow people to evacuate somehow. And maybe they will, and maybe this will eventually lead to us getting the Tengu as a playable race. But this was one of the only entrances to the Dominion of Winds where you can see the Tengu wall. It's really remote. You can speak to the Tengu here. Depending on how far you've done your your personal story, I believe what they say changes. But because I've come far enough, I suppose they're pretty happy with me. He says, "Norn, you have come as close as we will allow. You are brave to approach this wall without fear." We say, "Should we fear you?" He says, "Tengu respect those who respect Tengu. You appear to have earned that. But be warned that with any insult or disrespect will only earn the Tengu's arrows." What is this place? This is our dwelling, the Dominion of Winds. We keep watch from this perch as its power shifts and the world is transformed. We must soon determine with whom we will fight and with whom we will ally. What has led to this deep distrust of other races? It is not for me to speak of these things to your kind. Not yet. Perhaps in time should your race prove worthy, blah, blah, blah. If you played Guild Wars 1, and basically the Guild Wars 1 living story, you would know all about that. Or at least a good chunk of that story and why they are so distrustful. Basically because of a crazy Mesmer woman in the first game. Alright, so let's move on. I don't want to walk all the way back over there. We'll go back to the same waypoint. I'll show you guys Hooligan's route. And is that the end? I'm looking at my paint image and I think it is. I think this is the last thing, guys. I'll do a bit of a walk, I guess, so that we get to go back to where we originally were. This is Hooligan's Route. This is where a lot of pirates, and even pirates who are specifically affiliated with other pirates in the game, like Covington pirates, you know, like Tahida Covington and so forth, they all hang out here. This is like the scum of villainy that I guess Arenanet always wanted to be demonstrated, at least somewhere in Lion's Arch. You know, this is like the dangerous place that you shouldn't be, and everybody's grumpy and will probably try and attack you. But one significant thing about this place, you know, like even this is curious to me. What is Bort the Bloodless going to do during the fight? Namer Icefanged. Are they going to defend themselves? Are they going to defend this cave? Is Lion's Arch going to fall, but this cave always remains and the pirates are here? And we get to fight them in the future? Wouldn't that be cool? Anyway, one significant thing, though, is for players of Guild Wars 1 who want to recover their rewards, this was where Arenanet, in my opinion, very sloppily placed the Hall of Monuments stone. It's on a Karma vendor, sold for 0 gold, and you would buy it from this character so that then you could double-click it and get to your Hall of Monuments. Really random, like a complete placeholder thing that they never went back to or amended. The Eye of the North itself is a really weird instance that I'd love to see some more... Oh, I've never been to the Eye of the North, I guess, on this character. It's a really weird instance, but I guess that's off the topic of Lion's Arch. Anyway, this is one of the main reasons people would ever come into Hooligan's Route, this place here, because of that Hall of Monument Stone and little else. I guess, again, personal story stuff would be here, but not that much else. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty much the full tour. That's everything that was ever significant to me with Lion's Arch. Again, like the stuff that I showed at the first, at the start, I did show it first for a good reason. And that's because that's what most people are going to be nostalgic about and care about. But, you know, it was a big map. It had a lot of stuff here. Most of these NPCs, you can see I'm just walking past, they did have something to say. You know, it'd be crazy for me to stand here and wait to hear all of their idle dialogue and hear friggin' every single bit of text in the tour. But this is the main stuff, in my opinion, that was really significant. Some of the jumping puzzles and bigger things, obviously there are other videos if people want to check them out. But that was Lion's Arch in a nutshell. And as you can tell from all of my commentary on this video, I'm immensely curious on what's going to change with it, but I do believe it's going to get destroyed and destroyed for good. And should that happen, I guess I will upload this about a year from now, maybe a little bit earlier, we'll see. I might forget or accidentally delete it by then. But yeah, that's the idea of the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope this brought, you know, some memories back, maybe. By the way, these towers here on the left and right, these are like the highest areas with collision in all of Lion's Arch, so you could like void jump to climb on top of them and stuff, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Lion's Arch for everybody. This is where everyone used to hang out. damagingly so, in my opinion. I would rather people hang out in the other cities, and we'll see what happens in the future of Guild Wars 2. But big stuff, this is just before the conclusion of the living story for Season 1. Lion's Arch's last day on Blackgate, for the record. These were the players that were here before it all went to shit.
Come on, like that's gonna work on me.